Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Dr. Maria Ilyas. Today we are going to cover one topic from the general pharmacology. Today our topic is plasma half-life, and it is one of the most important topics in pharmacology, and especially in the general pharmacology, and without the concept of which you cannot understand the further concepts in general pharmacology. So first of all, we will know what is plasma half-life. So the plasma half-life, it says time in which the plasma concentration of the drug reaches to the half of its initial level after the peak has been reached. So there are the two keywords in this definition, which are half of its initial level after its peak has been reached, means the sufficient quantity of the drug or sufficient amount of the drug or sufficient concentration of the drug has been reached in your bloodstream, and after that the drug started decreasing and it reaches to the half of its initial. Secondly, that the half-life formula explains that, as you can see on your screens, that it is directly proportional to a constant, which is the value, and it is 0.693 and into volume of distribution, and inversely proportional to the clearance of the drug. So how can you clarify your concepts here? That formula shows that half-life is directly proportional to the volume of distribution. So greater the volume of distribution means the more the components in which the drug is entrapped, more time will be taken by the drug to reach the half of its initial level. So how the drug reaches half of its initial level? Obviously the drug is being excreted or eliminated from the body, and that processes are decreasing the drug concentration in your body. So greater the volume of distribution, for example, a drug which is highly lipophilic and it is distributed to your plasma, to your interstitial fluid and to intracellular fluids, into the nucleus, ribosomes, mitochondria. It is completely adherent or completely attached to these molecular structures, and it will not be easily detached from those structures. So more time will be taken by the drug to get out of the body, and its half-life will be great. But it is inversely proportional to the clearness, means that more the drug is cleared, lesser the half-life. You can say that more the drug is cleared by the kidneys or the liver, and obviously if the drug is being cleaned out, then obviously it will reach to the half of its initial level more rapidly as compared to the drug whose clearance rate is low. 0.693, you have to remember this as a constant number. So now thirdly, we will see the graph in which we represent the time on x-axis in hours, and on y-axis we represent the drug concentration. So in the graph we are seeing that from whatever the concentration was, it started decreasing over the time period, and after the 1.5 hours its concentration was 40%. So it means the drug concentration has been reduced half in a time period of 1.2 hours, and so it means that its plasma half-life is 1.2 hours. So till now we have covered three topics. We have covered three headings. We have covered definition, formula, and a graph. Okay, now considering what are the types of half-life, whenever you get a question you will be asked about the types of half-life. So there are the two types of half-life, alpha half-life and the beta half-life. In two headings you will see the alpha half-life and beta half-life. Alpha half-life is also called as a redistribution of half-life or the plasma half-life. Okay, now how to get the concept of the alpha half-life? You can grasp the concept by simple example. For example, you have given a patient a drug which is highly lipophilic drug. Lipophilicity means the drug is able to cross all the barriers which are present in the body. For example, placental barrier, blood-brain barrier, or any barrier which is present in our body. So for example, we gave a patient drug called as thiopental sodium. The drug will be rapidly distributed. Okay, its main action is to cause anesthesia, and it is mostly used in general anesthesia. So we have already discussed in the definition. We will start calculating the half-life after the peak has been reached. So we administer the drug, its peak has been achieved, action has been produced. Now the half-life has been started. Now the highly lipophilic drug, for example thiopentol sodium, now this drug will be rapidly distributed from the center to the peripheral. Center means the brain to the peripheral tissue. It is highly lipophilic drug, so obviously when it will be causing anesthesia, after that it will be distributed to the peripheral structures. Whether it's a highly lipophilic property means it will be going to attach to the molecules which are lipophilic. For example, your cell membrane, your mitochondria, your ribosome, nucleus, plasma, interstitial, everywhere. So that a little time period in which the drug is rapidly distributed from the center to the periphery, to the structure, from the brain to the other structures, is called as a alpha half-life. And for the thiopentol sodium, it is only 25 minutes. Okay, considering the same drug, there is a beta half-life. So it means the drug has started distributing, so you can say after causing its main action, that is anesthesia, after the peak has been achieved. Now on the other side we will be starting calculating. For example, if you assume a sigmoid curve or bell-shaped curve, for example, and you draw a line in between, so on the left side of the line there was always a peak, there was a slope which is increasing, and it has to reach the peak of the graph. Okay, now the peak has been achieved. Now we are going on to the right side of a graph. Okay, on the right side, now this is the right side of the graph, which is the half-life. It will be divided into two half-lives, alpha and the beta half-life. For some drugs, for example the thiopentol sodium, which is highly lipophilic, it will be first of all, after causing its action, it will be started redistribution half-life first, which is a type of plasma half-life in which will be redistributed from the brain to the periphery, but it has not sufficiently reached the kidneys or the liver to be properly eliminated. So after reaching those tissues or organs, this life is now called as a drug elimination half-life or the beta half-life, which is because of metabolism in the liver or because of the clearance from the kidney. And that half-life for the thiopentol sodium ranges between 5.5 hours to the 26 hours. So whenever you get a question to write the types of half-life, you will write the alpha half-life, which is the plasma or the redistribution half-life. And for thiopentol sodium, it was 25 minutes, and beta half-life, which is the tissues, or the drug elimination half-life, which is the second phase, and it is the 5.5 to 226 hours. Okay, so whenever you will get a question to write the types of half-life, you will write the alpha half-life, which is the plasma or the redistribution half-life. And for thiopentol sodium, it was 25 minutes, and beta half-life, which is the tissues, or the drug elimination half-life, which is the second phase, and it is the 5.5 to 226 hours. Okay, now for the fifth heading, we will be discussing the factors which affects the plasma half-life. Okay, now the factor. First of all is a factor which is a plasma protein binding. So three words indicates plasma. You know what is plasma, and then the proteins in your plasma and the binding. And we all know that there are different plasma proteins, which includes albumin, globulin, which also includes your lipoproteins. So these are the different kinds of and the most highest concentration of protein in plasma is of albumin. So for the plasma protein binding, in all the factors we have to see what is the relation of that factor to the plasma half-life. So you can write like drugs which is having the plasma protein binding, they have the longer half-life. How? Why? Because the drugs which will be the more tightly bound to the plasma proteins, they will be cleared laterally. How? Why? Because the plasma protein plus the drug complex forms such a large structure that it cannot cross all the glomerulus or the Bowman's capsule in the kidney and cannot be readily excreted out. So for the formula, you can learn that it has a lesser clearance, so it will be having the higher plasma half-life. So this factor is directly proportional. So for your knowledge, I am giving you the example of warfarin, which is an anticoagulant drug. It is a highly plasma protein bound drug, and its plasma half-life is more than 36 hours. Similarly, digitoxin, it has a half-life of 168 hours. Okay, now we have the second factor after the plasma protein binding, that is the pharmacokinetics pattern. So the pharmacokinetic pattern is depends upon the four main things: absorption. Pharmacokinetics includes absorption, then the metabolism or biotransformation, and then the excretion from the body. It is that what the body does to the drug. These are the factors which are the body dependent. Absorption, body has to absorb. Metabolize, biotransformation, body has to do either by the liver or the kidney or the other tissues, enzymes, the body has to do. So this is what the body is doing to the drug. And the fourth one is excretion. So we have the first order kinetics and the zero order kinetics, which falls under the heading of pharmacokinetic pattern. So you have to draw the columns. Okay, one side will be discussing the first order kinetics, and the second side will be discussing the zero order kinetics. Okay, before going into the further scientific explanation and just simple words, that as a student in a layman term, how I can, if someone asks you that what is the difference between the first order kinetics and zero order kinetics, what will you say? It's very simple. It says mostly the drugs will be biotransformed or metabolized by the enzyme which are present in the body. But from our junior classes, we all know that enzymes are in limited amount in the body, and at some point we will be running out of enzymes. There comes a point that for example, the substrate is more and enzyme is less. You always know a substrate, you always draw globular structure and a little rectangular structure. The globular structure is always enzyme, and a little rectangular triangular structure is substrate. So which sometimes changes the shape of enzymes, sometimes causes the denaturation of enzymes. So here we are saying that all the drugs will be metabolized by the enzymes or by the different transport systems are required for the movement of the drug or anything. So there are specific numbers of these proteins and the enzymes. If we give it the higher amount of the drug at certain or a specific till a specific time, that drug will be metabolized, will be transformed, will be absorbed, will be excreted. All the four processes will be occurring to that drug. But there comes a certain point that the body recognizes that no, it is a limit. All enzymes are now used, so body needs an enzyme, body needs a time to resynthesize those enzymes and proteins. Okay, and during that time period, there will be a drug which will not be metabolized, absorbed, transformed, biotransformed, and excreted. Then the drug started after that level. When the enzymes are sufficient, the drug follows the first order kinetics in simple words, and whenever we come to the point where all enzymes are full or used and they're no more available, all the drugs start following the zero order kinetics. Simple. So it is also called first order kinetics is a flow dependent elimination. That's in a flow. Okay, you are giving a drug, it is metabolized. So it is a flow dependent elimination. And in the zero order kinetics, it is a capacity limited elimination. Because why capacity limited? Because now all the enzymes has been used, and now you either have been shifted to the capacity eliminated elimination. Okay. So first order kinetics follows the exponential kinetics, that you give a drug, it is rapidly metabolized, all processes are very smooth. However, the zero order kinetics is known as saturation kinetics. Okay. In first order kinetics, always the fixed fraction of the drug is eliminated in the unit time. However, in zero order kinetics, that is the fixed amount of the drug is eliminated in the unit time. Okay, in fixed fraction, you get a fraction of any drug. Fraction is a mathematical term. It is not that, for example, such as a percentage. Same is the fraction. You will get a number, and you will, if the body is processing normally, you will know that, for example, this drug fraction is being that is normally in our we know that this drug is 60% eliminated. So we will calculate. For example, we have given 1000 mg. What is the 60% of 1000 mg? And that figure, that fixed fraction of the drug is eliminated. However, in zero order kinetics, fixed amount of the drug. For example, the 10 mg is eliminated, 10 mg is eliminated. Why? Because in zero order kinetics, this is the capacity limited. Certain amount of the drug will be excreted. It is not any dependent. No one is helping that drug to be eliminated. So on its own, it is a specific amount of the drug which is eliminated in the unit time. So amount 10 mg is physically limited, it will be 10 mg, 10 mg, 10 mg. At every half life will be 10 mg, 10 mg, 10 mg, 10 mg. If 20 mg, 20, 20, 20. But in a fixed fraction, there will be a fraction, and you will yourself derive that how much this drug's fraction is eliminated. Okay, and it will be changed at every whenever the drug concentration changes. If you give 1000 mg, its 60% will be different. If you give 100 mg, its 60% will be different. So it is the fixed fraction in first order, and the zero order fixed amount of the drug is eliminated. Now, because the fixed fraction of the drug is eliminated, that is, if a drug has to be eliminated in 60% range, no matter how much drug you will give, if you give a small amount, still 60% of that small amount will be eliminated. If you give a large amount, still the 60% of the drug's large amount will be eliminated. So in first order kinetics, it is a smooth process, so half-life will be constant. You will be getting same results every time. In zero order kinetics, half-life of drug is not constant. First 10 mg, then 10 mg, but half-life will be changed because you don't know how much amount of that drug was the starting point. But the constant amount of the drug is eliminated. So when you will get a graph, it will not be linear. But whenever you get a graph in first order kinetics, it will be linear one. So similarly, first order kinetics is concentration dependent manner. So it is concentration dependent. I said 60% of the drug, 60%. So it does not matter that how much drug you have given, the fixed fraction of that drug will be eliminated. But however, in the zero order, it is not the plasma concentration dependent. Either you are given whatever the drug has been ratio 10 mg is eliminating. It's not maintaining that is that concentration. You will get that every time the drug will be decreasing in a different way. Okay, some drugs follow the first order kinetics, means all drugs follow the first order kinetics in low dose in the switch to the zero order at the high doses. For example, alcohol. Okay, there is an exception. There are the three drugs. It is the you can remember by any mnemonic, but there are three drugs: aspirin, ethanol, and the phenytoin. Okay, I have remembered it by the word APE, that is aspirin, P for phenytoin, and E for ethanol. These are the three drugs in exception pharmacology which directly follows the zero order kinetics. Otherwise, all other pharmacologic drugs, which is of millions of drugs, they all follow the first order kinetics, and then they went to the then they go start following the zero order kinetics when they are saturation. So we have seen the two factors: plasma protein binding directly proportional to the plasma half-life, and the pharmacokinetic patterns. In pharmacokinetic, we see the first order kinetics and the zero order kinetics, and the half-life is constant in first order, and the half-life drug is not constant in the zero order kinetics. That is the end of the story for our topic related to the plasma half-life. So the third factor is the renal diseases and the hepatic diseases. So we know that in renal diseases, the pharmacokinetics slow down. Why? Because elimination is less, clearance is less according to the formula, and the half-life is increased. For example, the aminoglycosides are highly renal elimination dependent drugs. So aminoglycosides, their half-life is drastically increased if the person is renally compromised. So for aminoglycosides, you always have to look for the RFTs or the renal function test of the patient before administering those drugs, so that you know that if the renal functions are compromised, your dose will not be helpful for the patient, rather it will be the lethal for the patient. Okay, hepatic disease, the metabolism is also decreased and the half-life is increased, for example in liver cirrhosis or any disease. Okay, fourth factor is active metabolites. Some drugs are converted into active metabolites and they have increased half-life. Okay, in some okay, for example aspirin. So active metabolites, they almost have directly relation if they have directly relation with the half-life. That is the more active metabolites are produced after the transformation. So we have discussed that elimination or clearance should be decreasing the drug concentration in the body. It will be inversely proportional, more the clearance and less the plasma half-life. But some drugs in pharmacology that they after being given, instead of being eliminated and rather converted into the more type of substrates that are easily eliminated or excreted from the body, some drugs converted into active metabolites. So they boost up. You can say they boost up. So for example, the aspirin half-life is 15 minutes and its active metabolite, that is a salicylic acid, has a half-life of 2 hours. So you can remember active metabolites. If the drug, instead of becoming non-toxic and water-soluble product and started excreting from the body, some drugs boost up and they become the active metabolites. So those active metabolites are rather they are eliminated slowly from the body and they have the increased half-life. And I have given you the example of aspirin. Dear students, examples are very important at your level. Why? Because you are required by the teachers to write a simple, specific, crisp points so that your concepts are clear, either by one line even, okay, and with an example. This is the rule of general pharmacology. You don't go write so much lengthy notes that neither you can understand nor the examiner, which is who is she or he is taking the exam. So fifth factor is the enterohepatic circulation. So some drugs are metabolized in liver, they go into liver, they conjugate there with the glucuronic acid, and you have studied glucuronic acid pathway, all of you, in your biochemistry lectures in second year and first year. So some drugs will be conjugated with the glucuronic acid, and then that glucuronic acid conjugate will be excreted in bile and intestine. Okay, you can see on the screen this enterohepatic circulation diagram. Some drugs metabolite in the liver, they conjugate with the glucuronic acid. From there, with the help of the blood supply, they are excreted in bile. Bile goes into the second part of the duodenum in the intestine. Conjugate is broken by the bacteria or the enzymes present there. Active drug is released and then it is reabsorbed. So it is a process that the drug is trying to be eliminated or excreted from the body, but because of enterohepatic circulation and glucuronide conjugates, it is repeatedly keep absorbing again and again, and it ultimately its half-life is increased. For enterohepatic circulation, I am giving you approximately three examples for your benefit. First of all is the oral contraceptives. They have a high ratio of the enterohepatic circulation. Rifampicin, which is an anti-tuberculous drug, it has a dependent on the enterohepatic circulation. And spironolactone, which is a diuretic, has also dependency on the enterohepatic circulation. So oral contraceptives, rifampicin and the spironolactone, they are dependent on the enterohepatic circulation. Okay, I'm sorry, students, I have told you about the digitoxin also in the plasma protein bonding. In addition to that, and digitoxin also has enterohepatic circulation, and its half-life is approximately 168 hours, which is a very large number. So now coming to the sixth factor, which is a very, very important factor, volume of distribution. So we have seen in the formula that volume of distribution is directly proportional to the half-life. Okay, so greater volume of distribution and more is the half-life. And how you calculate, or how you know what is the volume of distribution? You know, whenever you give a drug, plasma is the first encountering medium, then the interstitial fluid, then the intracellular fluid. For example, if the drug is a high volume of distribution, here I am telling you these three compartments because I am going to give the example of chloroquine. Chloroquine is one of the drugs which is highly used, and you also know chloroquine is an anti-malarial drug. And in the recent circumstances of COVID-19, we have already seen that hydroxychloroquine was used. And you know, you should know chloroquine has a half-life of 45 to 55 days. Why? Because it gets deposited in those tissues which contains melanin. So it mostly gets deposited in eyes, skin, or the other and also the other tissues. So it is a very, very high plasma half-life of 45 to 55 days. Are directly proportional, and how they are directly proportional. In our next lecture, we are going to discuss the steady state concentration and plasma half-life connection, okay, and the clinical significance of the plasma half-life.